Hi everyone, welcome to Itsy Bitsy's live read from 2 AM Secrets by M. Piper. Chapter 1, Sadie. Shit, 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 I cursed. Fuck. Language, my grandma yelled downstairs, and I let out an annoyed huff. Sorry, Mimi. I yelled back and cringed when I heard her scoff at my tone, but I didn't have time for niceties. I was about to be late for work, which couldn't happen tonight. So instead of apologizing again, I continued searching the foyer for my keys. They had to be somewhere in this house. Hell, I got home last night with them, so they couldn't have just walked away. Tonight was the busiest night of the year, the New Year's Eve resolution gala on Navy Pier, and I finally snagged the top spot. I was the head bartender in the VIP area. You had to have money to get in, which meant I'd probably leave work with tips that equal out to more than my monthly pay. One night, thousands of dollars. Well, maybe. No keys meant no way to work, and no way to work meant kissing those tips goodbye. God, I needed those tips. Lost them again? The low voice, speckled with a hint of southern accent, rumbled me to my core and sent a warm tingle down my spine. I knew that voice all too well. I dreamed of that voice almost nightly for years. I spun around and my eyes hit the face of the hottest guy I'd ever laid eyes on. And unfortunately for me, that was about as far as my thoughts could go. Even with as much as I wanted to take them further and daydream about his lips on mine, I couldn't. Archer was my brother's best friend, and if there was one rule my brother and I stuck to, it was the whole rule about not touching each other's friends. We had a deal, and that was that. No fucking each other's friends. It was a pretty rock-solid pact that I had no problem following. Well, at least until Archer had to go and hit puberty like a beast, coming out the other side looking like a damn GQ model with the perfect amount of tan skin and scruff on a daily basis. He was 25. 3 months older than me, and almost to the date. But he carried himself like he was in his 30s, which reminded me daily that I needed someone on my own level. Not the level that Archer was on. The fact that he owned his own security company that hit the Fortune 500 list last year put him miles above me, the bartender who never finished college and lived with her grandma. He was completely out of my league. Sadie, you need a ride to work? It wasn't a question as much as it was a demand. He knew I had lost my keys again. It was something I did frequently, but usually I'd taken Sam's car. Archer had been a part of my brother's life for years, but he had never really had much of a friendship. In truth, he should have felt as much of a brother as my own flesh and blood. I shouldn't in any way be fantasizing about his lips on mine, but I did, plenty of times. So no, it was definitely not a close relationship we had. No, I said, finally answering him. I made a face as I tried to cover up the lust in my expression. Nope. I threw my hands up to my hips and tried to pull my eyes from his gaze, but it was useless. He had locked me in, and damn it if he didn't know it. I'm good, thanks. Yeah, you are, aren't you? The left sides of his mouth curved up, and he pulled his bottom lip between his teeth, then obviously let his eyes rake down my body and back up until he met my gaze again. The swipe of his eyes made my stomach clench, and my spine tingled with feelings I didn't need to experience, ever. He pulled his keys from my pocket and waved them in the air. Let's go. Your brother is still sleeping, so I can kill some time before waking his ass up. No, I wanted to kick myself for how awkward I was being, but I was too busy fumbling my own words to attempt that. No thanks, I really need to get to work. I grabbed my purse, flung it over my shoulder, and headed for the front door. Keys be damned. I refused to get into a car with Archer Crow. How are you doing that without any keys? He wasn't going to give up, and I didn't blame him. Lately, any time the two of us were in the same room, you could practically feel the sizzle of electricity between us. I wanted him and vice versa, which would never be able to happen. The one time he tried getting closer was about a month ago, and I ran away faster than I used to run on the school track team. He knew how I felt. I knew how he felt. That meant putting the two of us in a tight space together was the worst idea I heard in a long time. I'll walk, I snapped back at him, and flung the door open. -3. It was -3 degrees outside, and I was walking out in a tiny black dress. I was sure as shit going to rock tonight for those tips. I stood on the porch, half in and half out of the house, stared at the frozen city before me. I could do this. I had to. I was so wrapped up in getting away from him that when he pressed his body against my back and leaned down to my ear, I yelped and jumped, almost slipping on a patch of ice. His arm went around me first, then he pulled me to him and chuckled so low it reverberated between my legs and became an intense need. God, that laugh. Not to mention how perfect his strong arm felt around me. He could hold me like this all day if he wanted to, especially if he kept looking at me like he wanted to devour me. You won't make it like this, Sade. The nickname he had given me rolled off his tongue like his favorite whiskey, and my body shuddered. We've been through a similar song and dance like this plenty of times in the past few months. He'd approached me. I turned to a puddle at his feet, but I always got away before taking it too far. Having my body pressed against his like this was probably too far, but I couldn't stop it from happening. I'm okay, I whispered weakly. You can let go of me, my voice said, but my heart wasn't behind it. Because of the first time in forever, I finally felt as if everything was going to be okay. My parents died when I was 16, and everything in my life crumbled. My grandma got sick 2 years ago, and I moved back home to take care of her, but I knew that feeling of loneliness all too well. I felt it ebbing into me every day as I watched my grandma's health deteriorate. My brother didn't get it. He wasn't as invested in the emotional side of it as I was, and maybe that was my curse for having a vagina. But I knew soon he'd move out. Mimi would pass, and I'd be alone in this mess of house. So having Archer pressed against me like this, it felt way too good. And didn't I need something good every now and then? You can let me go, Archer. I won't fall. I looked up at him and my breath hitched. He wasn't looking at me like a friend. He was looking at me like he wanted me more than just the warm embrace he had me in. The cocky smirk he wore on a daily basis was plastered on his face as his hand snaked ever so slightly lower on my back and curved into my ass. The satisfaction on his face when I didn't stop him was hot as hell. It was all he wanted to do this a million times in the past, and he finally striking gold. Jesus, his hands felt good. But if I don't want to let you go? He searched my eyes and then dipped his head and pressed my lips to mine gently at first, as if a warning what was to come. Warmth spread over me despite the negative temperature at my back. I gave in to the kiss, darted my tongue out to taste his lips, and let his slide through my lips at the same time. My body was on fire, hot from need and lust. I didn't want to think anymore, but I had to. With a snap, I pulled back and looked at him like he just kicked a puppy across the road. What did you do? I whispered, panicked as the realization of what we just did set in. Something I've wanted to do for a long time, he whispered. But before I could reply, I heard footsteps stomping down the stairs. Shit! I pushed away from Archer so fast I almost fell on my ass again, making him laugh and me want to slug his smug ass. Sadie, I heard my brother call out. Sades, I have your keys. Oh, scurried around Archer, but not before getting a good whiff of his cologne and mentally slapping myself for what I just did. Great. Now every time I smell that thick, spicy scent, I'm going to think of him. I'm here, I called out to my brother as I rounded the corner. He stopped at the bottom of the steps, and his eyebrows shot up. What the hell are you wearing? His fist gripped my keys, and I rolled my eyes. Of course he'd give me trouble for this outfit. I'm late for work, Sam. Just give me my keys. I stuck my hand out and waited for him to toss me the keys to my car, but he didn't. He stepped down in front of me, and his eyebrows bunched together. He was 3 minutes younger than me, and yet he had acted like an overprotecting big brother. In high school, it drove me nuts. In college, it worked out a few times when we partied too hard and I needed an out from guys I clearly had beer goggles for. But now, I was old enough and didn't need his overbearing opinions. That's not your typical work attire, Sadie. No, it's not. It's the attire that's going to land me some awesome tips tonight. I wiggled my eyebrows to piss him off and heard someone clear their throat behind me, knowing full well it was Archer. I tried to ignore him, but Sam's eyes focused behind me, and I, for one moment, assumed I'd been caught, until my brother spoke. Is her ass hanging out? I couldn't look at my sister's ass, but it is hanging out. But is it hanging out, man? Sam sounded panicked, and when I turned to look at Archer, my cheeks immediately heated at the dark look he was giving me. You want me to check out your sister's ass? Archer smirked, and Sam growled. Fuck no. Not check out, just look. You wouldn't let your sister leave the house like this, either, Archer. Just happy I don't have a sister, Archer mumbled, while trying not to look too pleased at the open invitation to check me out. I watched as he took his time, appreciating my backside, the length of my legs, and studied my ass to appease my brother. The whole thing was fucked up, and I knew I should just go. Hell, I was already late for work. But I really enjoyed the way he was looking at me. Looks fine to me, Archer shrugged nonchalantly, and my mouth almost popped open in offense until I found Archer's eyes, and they said way more than his mouth just did. They said everything I was thinking and feeling about that kiss, everything wrong about it, and everything oh so right. Hell, I needed out before my brother caught on to the look Archer was giving me. Keys, I snapped, then reached out and snatched them from my brother, who looked like he might have a coronary. Great. I didn't look back on my way out to the car, and I definitely didn't take a deep breath as I walked past Archer. Nope, I didn't. Just like I didn't feel my nipples harden when he locked eyes on me as I passed by, and I definitely didn't let out a whimper when my shoulder accidentally brushed his arm. Fucked. Fucked was the term I was looking for. On the drive to work, I spaced out 3 times and almost wrecked once. The ice was ridiculous, and we were about to get hit with another storm in a few hours, but that wouldn't stop people from coming out to the party. It was Chicago, after all. If you couldn't survive winters in Chicago, you weren't meant to be here. When I finally made it, I checked my makeup in the flip-down mirror on my 10-year-old Chevy and slid out of the car as ladylike as possible. Bartending in a dress like this on a normal night was a risk, but on a night like tonight, it was needed. I knew the money would be there for tips tonight, and money was the one thing I needed. You're 20 minutes late, my friend, Amanda whispered as I snuck in through a back door and tried to log in without anyone noticing my incorrect timestamp. Car problems. It's so cold it didn't want to start. I gave Amanda a quick hug, thanking her silently for not ratting me out like some other employees would have. This was just a cutthroat industry, and there was plenty of people out there that wanted the position I had worked for years for. Lee's on a warpath already. The delivery was late this morning, so nothing's as organized as he wants it. Amanda clutched onto my hand as she gave me the rundown of the day, and then we got to work stocking the bar so we wouldn't have to make too many runs to the back when we opened in a few hours. The minute the doors opened, it was go time. I got to work pouring drinks, and Amanda and I fell into a routine that kept the booze flowing and the money coming in. It had been 5 hours since Archer's lips were on mine. Not that I was counting, but even with as busy of a night as it was shaping up to be, I still couldn't shake how good it had felt. Thank you for listening to this portion.